Hi there, how are you? Welcome back to M Talks. Today we're going to talk about one of the oldest, the oldest form of trading activity, which is the commodity trading activity. Your initial, the barter system where people just exchanged what they had with what they need with others is a form of commodity trade. I won't call it a business, or the way it happened then, it was not commercial because it just served a basic utility. And then the commercial aspect or the business aspect started kicking in when people started producing, or the agro and the livestock production started actually kicking in. People had their own farms and they cultivated produce, or they had their own livestock and they started breeding them for the purpose of exchanging them in a common marketplace with other people. So it then started becoming commercial. And then when these activities grew, early on it was the farmers or the breeders themselves who used to take whatever products they had to a marketplace to find consumers and customers who needed them. But when this activity grew and there was a lot of money involved, and the middlemen started coming in. But believe you me, the middlemen those days provided value, they added value. For example, the middlemen provided storage. So this aspect of storing the stock was taken away from the farmer so that he can concentrate on production. And then they also took care of transportation. So moving it from one place to the other or to the marketplace. So the farmers got more access to more markets. So they could produce more without worrying about selling their produce. So the middlemen added value. And what the service they provided to the end consumer was the variety, the choice. They brought in so much of variety from the farming community that the consumer could choose. So they added value for which they charged, which was okay. But if you look at the commodity trading today, it's more speculative. Somebody sits in a laptop and he buys and sells without even understanding what the farmers go through or the real need the consumer has and so on and so forth. They just jack up the price, making it difficult for everybody. Anyway, it is what it is. So when we talk about commodity trading, what are the different types of commodities that exist in today's marketplace? There are four categories. There are the metals, which is gold, silver, and other metals, valuable metals that are being traded. And then you have livestock. I don't have to explain. And then you have agro products like pulses, spices, like cotton, mostly raw materials that are used in the production of other finished goods. Like cotton, for example, is a critical ingredient for fabric making. And then you have today the energy products like crude. Not petrol and diesel, not the end consumer product, but the crude. And then you have gas and so on and so forth. So these are the four basic categories that are traded in today's commodity market. But a very important aspect here is that unlike your crypto or even stock market to a large extent, there is a lot of intrinsic value in these products. For example, if you buy gold and silver, there is intrinsic value. You can keep them. You can actually buy them and keep them, or you can keep them in electronic form, and you can expect it to actually grow in value over a period of time. So as an investment option, these have certain intrinsic values which other commodities or other products, I beg your pardon, like cryptos or even the stock market, even the securities market, it's just a piece of paper. And tomorrow the companies that have issued these shares cease to exist. It just turns out to be like toilet paper. So this is how it is. Moving on, when we talk about the commodity market, another interesting development that has happened, it's happened like centuries back, not overnight. This is the futures option. What do I mean by futures option? Let's not go too much into jargon. There are people use too much jargon today, I think, to confuse the layman or the first-time investors, so that they're like always dependent on some expert to guide them and so on and so forth. I don't believe in that. Let's keep it simple. What is a future option or a forward contract? Simple. You, a supplier, is actually entered into one of the key things that has developed, and in fact this concept is not new, it's been there for centuries, is the futures or the forward option. Again, don't get confused with this jargon. I think people use this jargon to make it difficult for a normal customer or a normal investor, because they want them to be dependent on some experts and kind of get control that way. It's very simple. It's just entering into a contract for a future delivery. For example, I enter into a contract with, let's say, a farmer, or let's say a distributor, or let's say a producer, somebody who produces a product, and say for the next 2 years I will buy X quantity of your product, and now I want to kind of crystallize the price. I will say I will buy it for, let's say, X amount for the first year, and X plus 10% for the second year, X plus 15% for the third year, and so on and so forth, so that for me, a consumer, the price is guaranteed. For the producer, his sale is guaranteed. So it's a win-win for everybody. And typically, I'll tell you where this actually is beneficial. Earlier, before all this became so modern, the reseller, or let's say the stockist, will go to a farmer and say, I will buy everything that you produce. So what happens is that the farmer is sure of his sale. He knows, okay, this is going to be bought by this X person. And he even gets an advance which he can plow back to, start working on his next season, start working on his next crop, or so on and so forth. And the price is also fixed. So the middleman, or the guy, or the stockist, or the wholesaler is assured, okay, this is the price at which I'm going to get X amount of quantity, so that he can plan how much he's going to sell it at what points in time, and which are the markets, which are the retailers he needs to be in touch with to kind of, sell this product. So it becomes very easy for everybody. And a classic example in today's scenario is the airline industry. They normally buy fuel for the next 5 years, and they have a future contract with the fuel suppliers to say, for the next 5 years we'll buy X amount of fuel from you, and this is the price we will pay. It will be staggered over the third year or fourth year or fifth year, as the case may be. So the benefit for the airline industry is that they can't keep changing their ticket prices based on fuel costs, and even if they change, acceptability is an issue. So for them, they know, okay, this is the cost of fuel. And so they're able to make sure that their prices are stable. And in an industry where competition is very high, some of the items need to be stable for them to sustain in their business. So that's an example. So this is how a futures or a forward contract works. Okay. This is just to give you an indication of how these things work. Let's look at, if you want to invest in the commodities market, what are the benefits for you? Number one, it has, like I mentioned, an intrinsic value. So it is not entirely speculative as compared to, like I mentioned, the crypto or even the securities market. Number two, the trends impacting the commodity market are generally based on some kind of a scientific factor or a logical factor. I'm sorry, it may not be scientific, but there is a logic. If there is, let's say, an issue in the Middle East and the oil production is impacted, so you know that the crude oil is going to be more expensive. So these are things that are based on some kind of happening around. And the third thing is, like I mentioned, there is some sort of intrinsic value in the product that you're investing in. And for example, if you're investing in gold and silver, you know for a fact that some of these items over a period of time are going to be on a floated average basis much better as compared to the securities market. And there isn't, too many of these speculative investors in the commodities market. Normally, general basis. There are too many players in the securities market, too many players in the crypto market, And there aren't too many of these speculative investors in the commodity market. So to that extent, it's still a little protected as compared to the other investment opportunities. What are the major disadvantages or things that are not too hot about the commodity market? One, it's generally not very conducive for new entrants, because there are people who have been, in this business for decades or even centuries, and as families, as part of their heritage, they have been in this business, and they actually are at a better advantage as compared to newer entrants. Second, there is a lot of governmental influence, because these are commodities, agricultural commodities or metals. So the governments want to protect their economy from too much of speculation. And also the fact is, if there are rifts or conflicts between governments and certain, let us say between certain countries, then you have some products which are banned and some products which cannot be, shipped from one place to the other. So there are these issues that you need to be careful about, which make it a little more tricky, this particular investment. And second is, it certainly does involve large amounts of money. I mean, you cannot, for example, buy small quantities of gold or small quantities of a certain or crude and expect to make big margins out of it. You have to have a sizable investment. So that's the other thing. And the marketplace for the commodities is truly global, which means there is a lot of things that one need to keep track of or analyze before you actually get into it. And again, if it is truly global, something happens in the far corner of the world can impact the market. So you really cannot anticipate it. So it makes it more difficult to work this particular market. Okay. Having said that, what are the things that you need to be careful about when you are actually looking at investing in the commodity market seriously? One, like I mentioned, rifts between different governments, they will have a huge impact on the commodity market, the commodity prices. So you need to be wary about that. Second, you need to pick the right exchange to go with. It's very critical, because there have been a lot of issues in exchange houses which have provided opportunities for people to invest or speculate in the commodities market. That's something you have to be careful about. And the third thing, before you enter into it, do not spread your investment. Do not look at like 10 different products to invest in. Pick one or two, analyze them, spend time, look at the global patterns, look at the seasonal patterns, look at when these get activated. Look at, for example, if you're looking at crude, when the airlines contracts get expire and when they're going to renew it, and so on and so forth. These are things that you need to keep track of. So understand these patterns before you start putting your money in them. Anyway, like all other opportunities, this particular opportunity has its benefits, has its disadvantages. It's up to us as investors to be careful, to prepare ourselves, to analyze, to study before you enter anything, or you go into any investment, or you look at any such opportunity. And this is what I would like to share with you on this video. Thank you very much for listening in to me. Till we meet again, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe.